It's another Confessions podcast from your friends at Radio 2 here. Have you got a bad tale for us? I think you have. Details coming up. However, first of all, this week's concise collection includes some chocolate chip chicanery, a squirt alert, low-down lies from the library, and a deadly dose of deodorant. So, 4 confessions for you. Who are you going to forgive? Here it all comes. So tonight's confession comes from Bernard. Thank you very much indeed. And I should just say that...
Is this the warning?
Well, this is the warning. Yeah, it's sort of a warning, which is to say there's nothing...
Oh.
If you're eating...
Oh.
It might not really go very well with it.
Yeah. Okay. Stop for a moment.
So just put everything on pause.
Absolutely.
It's not unsafe. Well, it is.
Oh, is it?
But it's okay, really.
Good.
But I'm just flagging this.
That's very good of you. No, that's very good of you.
Covering your back.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Covering everyone's back.
Thank you.
So Bernard says, Your Eminence and the Angelic Collective.
Oh.
I fear that perhaps certain actions I took to broker a peaceful resolution to a terrible dispute between my son, who for the purpose of this I shall call John, and my daughter, to whom I shall refer to as Janet, needs your attention. Janet was 5. John was 7. As my wife was at work, the task to collect Janet and John from school fell to me. Once we arrived at home, John decided he would spend a little time playing on his computer, as was his wont, and Janet decided to play in a room. Okay. Then Janet decided she wanted to watch a video on the television, and I was able to relax, so decided to make a cup of tea and perhaps enjoy a biscuit of the chocolate chip type.
Excellent.
This is relevant. I was particularly pleased with myself as there'd been no incidents of sibling rivalry whatsoever, something which no doubt you'll appreciate with young children of this age is extremely rare.
Okay.
What a great father I was. However, what I didn't know was that something, and to this day I'm not sure what it was, happened. Now, whether John had decided to aggravate Janet or Janet had decided to wind up John is unclear.
Kids do that, though, don't they?
Yeah, I know. But my few moments of peace and the perfect mug of tea were interrupted.
Okay.
Shouts and screams, banging on doors emanated from upstairs. It frightened the cats, caused an immediate response from me, mug in one hand and freshly dunked double chocolate chip cookie in the other. I rushed to the scene, but halfway up the stairs it happened. The biscuit, which had already achieved its point of total saturation in the tea, which I was holding in my fingers, decided that enough was enough and plopped, with one great soggy pile, onto the cream stair carpet.
Oh, the cream.
Meanwhile, Janet and John were still at it, arguing and shouting and yelling and screaming. John had locked himself in his room, an indication that he had borrowed something of Janet's without asking, and Janet banging on his door, demanding its immediate return. I had to somehow end this dispute, and realising that the double chocolate chip cookie no longer looked like a double chocolate chip cookie, but something rather less than appetising.
Oh, no.
I hatched my plan. Janet and John were still oblivious to my presence and were rather startled when I bellowed, "Who didn't let the cats out?" Janet stopped banging. Sheepishly inquired, "What?"
Brilliant.
John was now curious and opened his door. Both stood there and looked innocently at me. I looked at the mess on the carpet, which drew their gaze, and explained, "You two have been so busy arguing you have ignored the cats. You know they're not allowed upstairs." This seemed to spark another row over who should have seen the cat, but then John decided he would try and call my bluff. If successful, my whole plan would be in ruins.
Ooh.
"It's not, is it?" he said, both of them still keeping their distance. "What do you think?" I responded. "Certainly looks like it." And then Father Simon did something which, in retrospect, I shouldn't have done.
Oh, no.
But did, just because the opportunity was too good to miss, especially where innocent minds are concerned.
Oh, no.
I placed my index finger into the mass and placed it in my mouth and said,
"Oh, no!"
"Well, it definitely tastes like it."
You don't know.
I was not prepared for what happened next, and certainly I learnt a valuable lesson. They reacted with, shall we say, unified spontaneity. It certainly put an end to sibling disputes for the rest of the day. I, for my part, had to spend the rest of the afternoon and evening cleaning, I'll leave out the next bit. I seek forgiveness for the squeamish feelings my now grown-up children still experience every time they see someone eating a freshly dunked double chocolate chip cookie. And that's basically the story. I think the phrase there, the key phrase, is unified spontaneity.
Yeah, that's very good.
You see, it's interesting. So I gave you warning because clearly it was upsetting to Janet and John, but nothing untoward had actually happened other than a melted bit of biscuit had fallen on the carpet.
Yep.
So anyway, that's the thing, Sister Rebecca.
I think that there is a danger in having cream carpet on the stairs, isn't there? I mean, really.
With kids, doesn't work.
With kids, and I mean, in any case. But I do I love that. Distracting the kids with cat poo and then pretending to eat it. That is genius. I wish I thought of that. I just think for, imagination, just 10 points out of 10. So you're completely forgiven, Bernard.
And we know what Brother Matthew thinks about lying to children anyway, so we know what's coming. But anyway, the Dean of Deadliness first.
Kids can take it anyway. It's very, very funny, I think, basically. I think I might have been tempted, if I was trying to disguise what I was doing, or go through the motions of that, as it were, pardon the expression, I might have decided to smell it rather than taste it.
Okay,
I was going to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether it would have been that convincing for me personally, but the kids bought it, so who cares? And it was very, very funny and a good way of getting a point across.
So you're forgiving?
I'm forgiving.
Okay, Brother Matthew.
Yes, I'm with Rebecca on the cream carpets on the stairs. We've got cream carpet. Absolute nightmare.
Nightmare.
No,
whose
who
fault is
was
that?
thinking that?
You were.
But no, people who put it down before we bought it. Anyway, I'm
lucky it
all
upstairs. You're
for
lucky it
lying to kids. Lying to kids, absolutely. And do you know what? I think they will have gone into school and said, "You are never going to believe what my dad did last night." Never going to believe it. The huge amount of respect to Bernard in the playground. Huge amount from me as well. I am going to forgive.
And we have a special Shrove edition of the confession. And I think Shrove from Shriven actually means confession. So there you go. So it all kind of nicely works in, don't you think?
Yeah, very
And Nigel
impressed.
making a very rare Tuesday appearance.
Very honoured, yes. And good. I just love some of the stuff on the text as well about, like, some Disco Inferno, so that does worry me somewhat.
Don't build your part up then.
Sorry, I know. Shut up, Nigel.
We'll come to you after 6, right? This is my bit.
Beg your pardon.
Hear that music running? Anyway, it's a confession. It's a Shrove confession, and it comes from Big R, OK? Big R, that's what we're doing. Dear Simon and the Shrove Tuesday Collective, allow me to, at this holy time of year, confess to a crime against society which I believe may have been instrumental in causing immense difficulty in getting into food packaging. Which is an unusual opening paragraph, you have to say. In fact, these incidents took place in, 3 decades ago, and me and my co-conspirator were in our late teens, and working then for a small supermarket company based in the Humberside region, and we'll leave it at that. Myself, let's call me Big R, and my colleague, let's call him Big L, spent many dull hours doing all of those tedious and repetitive supermarket chores, shelf stacking, warehousing, cleaning, manning the tills. Yes, no 2 days were different, apart from, that is, Tuesdays, when the shop manager, who bore an uncanny resemblance to Freddie Mercury, had his day off, leaving the store in the capable hands of Mrs. Dixon, whose idea of managing was to spend a great deal of her time picking her nose and talking to the till staff, well away from the depths of the upper warehouse. Just what you want. In that quiet enclave, away from prying eyes, Big L and I had found a way to pass a dull Tuesday afternoon, playing out scenes from Star Trek and Star Wars, using what were very accurate in terms of aim, if not looks, phaser and lightsaber replacements. These took the form of readily available yellow citrus fruit-shaped containers for lemon juice with a green leaf.
I wonder what they could be. Yeah.
Said containers came in a foam box with no further wrapping and were readily removed and used, water pistol style, to zap each other, and indeed any passing till girl with a jet of tangy lemon juice. Now, as pointed out at the beginning of this long overdue confession, this was in a time before the adoption of increasingly ingenious and complex anti-tamper features. These yellow citrus fruit-shaped containers for lemon juice with a green leaf were easily opened by unscrewing the cap, aimed at each other, and subsequently emptied. Sometimes we could go through 7 or 8 of these yellow citrus fruit-shaped containers for lemon juice with a green leaf, and this left us with a number of problems. 2 specifically. Firstly, the strong smell of tangy lemon in the upper warehouse, easily solved. 1 quick swipe with a wet mop and 1 sweet-smelling warehouse. Mrs. Dixon thought we took pride in our environment, you know. Secondly, and slightly more difficult, several now mostly empty yellow citrus fruit-shaped containers for lemon juice with a green leaf. We couldn't just simply put them back into the foam container, now could we? Well, of course not. As previously mentioned, before the introduction of hermetically sealed and welded shut food containers, it was no problem to simply pop out the little nozzle, that which allowed for such accuracy, take said yellow citrus fruit-shaped container for lemon juice with a green leaf to the staff canteen and fill it with run-of-the-mill cold water, and then firmly pop back in the nozzle, screw in the little cap, put it back in, thereby re-securing the lemon and putting it back in the box for later sale.
Oh, no.
And so I feel that at this time of year, I need to apologise and confess, not only to those people in the East Leeds area who, upon dousing their pancakes in what should have been tangy lemon juice, subsequently realised that it was just tap water, also to the suppliers who may well have had many letters of complaint and lost sales, but also to all of you who ever since have had to find ways to get into packaging designed to keep the likes of me, Big R, and my work colleague, Big L, out. So humbly I lay myself before you, Simon, the Shrove Tuesday Collective, and indeed the entire nation, for possibly being the instigation for the so hard to get into that you might as well end up starving food packaging than how graces our supermarket shelves. Also mitigation, I should point out that I always preferred golden syrup on my pancakes in the first place. I thank you very much indeed. That's Big R. Which really, when you think about it, I mean, it's quite a humorous tale. However, what it means is that people bought a very important lemon juice container and ended up just with water on their pancakes, which on this day of days, it would be a huge disappointment. What do you think, Sister Rebecca?
I'm amazed that there were no complaints to the supermarket because, as you know, the retailer would be responsible for any faulty good,
Yes.
but clearly not.
Yes, no.
I think it's a good thing that they may have contributed to packaging being made tamper-proof, don't you? I mean, no. Anyway, I think it's a good thing, and it's you know, they could have put all sorts of things in there. At least they put water in there.
Oh, well, that's okay
in a
then.
way. So I think overall the result was a good one, and as you say, it was quite amusing, and so you're forgiven.
But these people, they're putting water on their pancakes. And let's see what Novice Nigel makes, who's getting some ideas here.
Yeah, well, I do think that it's not great, really, having all that. Because I know there will have been definitely complaints. It'll just never have got back to the warehouse. I think, and it's the people
All that work, you make the batter, you heat up, you gather the family around.
Yeah, I know. And also,
pour water on it.
My grandpa's family, the Grimshaws, are from East Leeds, and knowing the family as they are in Sherburn and Elmet, Garth around there, they would not taken kindly to a lemony thing, but was anything but lemony. So on this occasion, particularly on the on
Dad, you put water on
Mardi
the
Gras,
pancakes.
yeah,
Useless.
just saying you've done all the hard work and then the pancakes ruined. So from a culinary perspective, I'm afraid I cannot forgive you, Big R or Big L.
I wonder if it lets you off Lent, though, if you've had a bit of a disappointment in the pancake department. Maybe you don't have to give anything up. Anyway, Brother Matthew.
Yes, interesting thought. I'm going to tell you why there won't have been any complaints, because no one really likes lemon juice. It's far too tart. And people have been going, actually, this lemon juice is not too bad. It's not as bad as it normally is. Normally, it's awful bitter stuff, and this stuff's
It's a
all
lemon.
right. Yes, we didn't know, but it's awful. I can't stand lemon juice.
Your pancake, then, will
well,
you?
clearly, no. And I love the hoops we had to jump through for not saying the brand of lemon juice we did all the way through and then had no problem saying golden syrup at the end. Excellent. I am definitely going to forgive because nobody likes lemon juice, and that's a fact.
Well, if I'd said Jif, that would have been an issue.
You can't say Jif,
Yes. No.
obviously.
Golden syrup isn't a
Golden
trademark.
No, it isn't. Golden syrup is a style of syrup.
Oh,
There you
is
go.
it?
If I'd said Lyle's, that would have been...
Oh, right, you can't say Lyle's. Well done. Good job we didn't say Jif then.
No.
Dear Father Simon and the Forgiving Few, the confession always seems to be on when I'm in the car with my children, ferrying them to and fro from various clubs and activities. It's become essential listening in their lives. In fact, my younger son, whom we shall call the Devil's Child...
Oh, I like this.
By the
already.
way,
Yeah.
this is...
That makes you the devil, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, no, the confession is Devil Child's mum.
Okay.
That's who it's from.
Oh, right,
Thank you, Devil Child's mum.
Devil Charles, Mum.
So my younger son is often dreaming up misdemeanours he can commit now in order to confess them to you in later life. He most admires the confessions involving theft and smells. And was particularly impressed with the Andy Murray as currency one. Anyway, he's often asking me if I have anything that I could write to you and confess to. But I've always denied it, until now. We'll gloss over the communal changing room rah-rah skirt incident in the 80s. You see, Father Simon, I have recently sinned and feel compelled to offer up my confession to you in the collective. My crime occurred shortly before Christmas. I've been unable to confess any sooner just in case my identity could be revealed. I'm hoping that enough time has now passed that the librarians in the local library have now forgotten me. It started as a normal Saturday morning. We decided to venture into town to finish off our Christmas shopping and to visit the local library, which was holding a Christmas-themed activity play. Prior to leaving, my husband decided to check online that we'd rounded up all the library books. My library card and the cards of our two sons were clear and tickety-boo, of course. But after checking his card, there was a choking sound followed by a stunned silence. You see, unbeknownst to me, sometime in the summer, my husband had taken the boys to the library, where they had proceeded to borrow as many books as they could physically carry home, all on my husband's card. He had then promptly forgotten this until now.
Oh dear.
The consequences of this memory lapse were huge. It appeared he owed in excess of £100 in fines. As he had been temporarily rendered speechless, it fell to me to contact the library to plead for leniency. "But," I wheedled, "he works abroad a lot. It's nearly Christmas. It was an honest mistake. Please, just this once, please. It's nearly Christmas." "But you didn't return the books when you should have," intoned the Jobsworth on the other end of the phone. "But what if I... Well, OK, how about if I say I lost them?" I said. "It'd be cheaper for me to replace them than to pay you a fine of more than £100. I was getting desperate. The Jobsworth continued, "But you haven't lost them, have you? You didn't return them when you should have, did you? You must pay the fine."
This is a new voice.
There was
This
a
is
note of joy in his voice. "Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You must pay the fine."
What? Wizard of Oz.
Oh, that's what it is. "OK," I said meekly, and hung up. However, instructing my husband and children to stay indoors, I gathered up aforementioned books and left the house. With me were several items necessary for my mission: a hat, a pair of glasses, a scrunchie, and a reversible gillet. Wearing a red gillet, my hair in a ponytail, and carrying...
It's a gilet,
I think you'll
obviously.
find.
Yeah. I mean, I know nothing about fashion, but I know
Listen,
it's a gilet.
if you're an Artie Ponzi type, you might say that. Ordinary people
Call it a gillet.
say gillet. What should I say? Gilet.
Gilet.
It's
on the second syllable there.
Is it?
Yeah.
Wearing a red thing, my hair in a ponytail, and carrying a rucksack, I crept into the library. I located the shelves from whence the books had come, and I carefully returned them. So as not to arouse any suspicion, I took the occasional book from the shelf, perused it before returning it again, for all intents and purposes appearing a regular customer. I made sure I caught no one's eye. After many long minutes, all the books were returned. Sweating profusely, I left the library and headed to the nearest public toilet. Here I removed the scrunchie, brushed my hair, I put on my hat, I reversed my hair thing, blue this time, and donned my glasses.
Wow.
With trepidation, I returned to the library. Excuse me, I wonder if you could help me," I said to the librarian at the information desk in my best helpless female voice.
Oh dear.
There seems to have been some dreadful mistake. The computer says I have outstanding books. It's not very hopeless, is it?
No, it's not.
I seem to have this huge fine. I batted my lashes as my eyes filled with tears, but I returned them ages ago. I don't know what's gone wrong. Immediately I was surrounded by a gang of kindly and sympathetic librarians. This was an impressive sight. As I mentioned previously, the library was holding a Christmas activity morning, and all the staff were in fancy dress. A reindeer, a fairy, a right jolly elf, and even Santa himself came to my aid. "Don't you worry," said the elf. "We'll soon sort this." The team swung into action. The fairy was responsible for performing a computer stock check on the books I'd borrowed. The reindeer took charge of my husband's card in order to see what had gone wrong. Santa and I were dispatched to the shelves to hunt for the books, and the right jolly elf appeared to be coordinating the entire mission. Oddly, after some time, Santa and I located all the missing books. I'd had to be careful in my hunt. I thought it would be suspicious if I immediately found all of them, so I looked and pondered shelves where I knew full well I wouldn't find anything, leaving Santa to exclaim happily when he found a book. We returned triumphant to the counter. By now even I was believing the books had been returned some weeks before. Things were progressing well on the computer front, and soon the account was all clear. The self-service return system was duly blamed for the whole debacle. "Happens all the time," said the right jolly elf. "Don't you worry." He patted my arm. Guilt-ridden, I slunk out of the library. I have yet to return. So I seek forgiveness from the library staff, particularly Santa, who on an exceptionally busy morning was nevertheless willing to help. I seek forgiveness from the cash-strapped local council for failing to pay what was rightfully owed. I realise now the error of my ways, and I would never, ever...
Never do it again.
Ever.
Yeah, we get it.
And I seek forgiveness from the small children who had to wait patiently for Santa whilst he was assisting me on my fool's errand. And finally, forgiveness from my own boys who didn't get to meet Santa at the library at all. Yours seasonally, Devil's Child's mum. Lots of apostrophes there. What do you think, Sister Rebecca?
Well, I like the addition of the Christmas characters, and I also admire the Devil Child's mum's ingenuity with the scrunchie and the hat and the gilet and all that. But I think that libraries have fines as deterrents so that you return your books on time, and they are actually facing closure, a lot of them. And this is going to give people ideas, and how can libraries run on this basis and all that.
She's very sorry.
So
she says she got that she was the wrong thing.
I think that from a civic-minded point of view,
la-di-da.
I cannot forgive.
Look at you there. I quite like the sound of the Devil Child. I like the fact he's dreaming up misdemeanours to commit now so he can confess them in the future, Brother Matthew.
This is one of those heist confessions, isn't it? Where we get all the disguises out and decide to do it and sweat profusely throughout. And you run your whole gamut of voices through there.
Well, there wasn't much of a gamut.
Yes.
Isn't it a gamay anyway?
No. Jamu. Yes. I always thought that libraries put a cap on these fines, because otherwise they just go on into infinity, wouldn't they? And if you never brought it back, then you'd be owing the national debt. So, and I can't believe no one's ever done this before. Someone must have decided, do you know what? Rather than pay the fine, I'll just sneak it back on the shelf, and then,
that doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't make it right.
No.
So let's make that clear. That does not
Libraries
make it right.
need your money, and you'll probably return books.
Otherwise, they will shut down. And so, for that reason, I am going to forgive, because we've all done it. We've all done it. And who are we to cast aspersions on the Devil's Child's mum?
And into the collective, we welcome Novice Nigel, who's back and looking rather bizarre, really.
Yeah. No, smart. I think that's the word you're looking for. I'm wearing
Second-hand car salesman.
I'm wearing a suit and a rather jazzy tailored shirt.
That'll be the Whiskey Awards or something like that.
The Midas Food and Drink Award.
So it's a clap-shot pie coming up the other side of the 6 o'clock news. Very looking forward to that very much. Here's tonight's tale, and it comes from Tim, who enters the confessional and says, "Dear Father Simon and the Reverend Few, my confession dates back to the early 1970s, when I was in my very early teens. As any prepubescent schoolboy will vouch for, it was a time when wanting to impress others was the #1 priority, and that was done through the dubious deed of wearing some very dodgy clothes. My brother, we'll call him Henry, for reasons that will become apparent, who was 2 years older than me, he and I would compete with each other as to whose flares were the biggest. Covering the shoes was a minimum requirement, and we got our long-suffering mum to stitch additional triangular panels into our brushed denim jeans to heighten the effect further. This is a very good tip, by the way, if you need your flares to be bigger. Lots of people go, yeah, I did that. My favourite outfit was a pair of Prince of Wales check Oxford bags with 4 buttons on the high waistband, which I wore with a black nylon shirt and a purple jacket. What a dude!
Wow.
Yeah, this was a look. But something was missing. To carry off the effect to maximum benefit, you needed to be wearing the one thing that I longed for, Brute 33 Splash-On Lotion.
Oh, I see.
As advertised seemingly endlessly on TV by those doyens of fashion, Henry Cooper and his younger sidekick, Kevin Keegan. The trouble was, I did not have any at all, nor can I pluck up the courage to go into Boots the Chemist or Timothy White's, as it was in those days, to go and buy any. And also the price seemed absolutely extortionate. However, one Christmas our luck changed, almost. Henry and I both received some Brute 33 stick deodorant. Stick deodorant. Maybe someone was trying to tell us something. You know the kind of thing, a solid mass of grease that you twisted from the bottom and smeared in your armpit. It never actually fully dried, but created enough of a mask to cover the pervading aroma from a teenager's sebaceous glands. And it could be topped up on a daily basis, washing optional, so that by the end of the week there was enough there to literally scrape off and start again.
Hello.
But it was the splash-on lotion that I so desperately wanted. The deodorant stick was a poor substitute, so I had a cunning plan. One Saturday morning, when my parents and Henry were all out, I would manufacture my own splash-on lotion. from said deodorant.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
Now
Of course you would, yeah.
Yeah. Now, my stick was getting pretty well worn, but Henry's was looking remarkably well preserved. Surely he wouldn't notice if I swapped them over. And anyway, I needed as much of the green-tinged deodorant stick as possible for my idea to work. My notion was a simple, yet I felt enterprising one. I would melt the deodorant stick. And then the liquid formed from this I would capture in a jam jar. And hey presto, Brute 33 splash-on lotion, job done. Because that's...
Cannot fail. This cannot fail.
That's how simple it was. So, armed with a receptacle, I headed for the kitchen and the gas cooker, where I carefully lit one of the front rings that held Henry's deodorant stick over the gently roaring blue flame. Now, I don't know what's used in the manufacture of deodorant sticks, but within seconds, the harmless solid mass turned into something resembling a flamethrower. I was so shocked that I dropped the brute stick on the floor and was mortified to see that it melted at an alarming rate. Very soon I was pinned against the sink by a tsunami of brute fragranced lava, threatening both the lino floor covering and the Formica kitchen cupboards. I needed to act fast, and I did what first came into my head. I filled the washing up bowl with cold water and flung the contents over the volcanic flow. Now, physics was not a strong point of mine at school, and I'd clearly not thought this through. The cold temperature had the effect of restoring the molten Brute 33 deodorant stick to its original state. The kitchen floor was covered entirely in a 2mm layer of Brute 33 deodorant. How was I going to clean this lot up before my parents and Henry returned? So anyway, for the next hour, Father Simon, or however long it was, I was on my hands and knees with a butter knife, scraping the gel-like substance into a bucket and disposing the contents in the outside bin. To my horror, as I got closer to the kitchen cupboards, I realised the brute lava had done permanent damage and melted the plastic strip that joined the built-in cupboards to the floor. As there was an overhang on the cupboard, you could only see this if you were on your hands and knees. So note to self, always offer to clean the kitchen floor from now on. Somehow I managed to clear the mess up before my parents and Henry arrived home, and also managed to hide the prevailing smell of Brute 33 with the aid of copious amounts of the lavender air freshener from the downstairs loo. When my parents arrived home, they commented on how clean the kitchen floor was, and how nice the house smelt, to which I coyly responded that I thought it was only right that I should try and do my part to help with household chores, something I would be happy to do from now on, particularly cleaning the kitchen floor whenever needed. So, Father Simon, I need forgiveness from my parents, who never realised the damage or potential disaster I wreaked on their Formica kitchen cupboards, which were replaced several years later by some bemused kitchen fitters who couldn't understand why most of them were melted at floor level. And also from Henry. I did the noble thing of replacing his almost pristine Brute 33 deodorant stick with my well-used item, removing a few armpit hairs before leaving his room. I was convinced he wouldn't notice the difference, but he did. Nearly 40 years on, I remember this event as if it were yesterday. And as I pass my 14-year-old son's bedroom and choke on the Lynx and Ted Baker haze emanating from the door, I shiver as to whether history might indeed repeat itself. Well, Tim, you're quite right. Physics has not a strong point in your mind if you thought you could make a splash-on lotion by melting a deodorant stick. An exciting, an original tale from Tim. What do you think there?
I thought that was hilarious. I'm intrigued as to why he thought that the lavender air freshener would be a better smell than the Brute 33, really. But that's a minor point. Surely it would have been easier than to go through that kerfuffle, just to go and buy, save up and go and buy some splash-on lotion, or maybe ask for it for Christmas or something, if you can't afford it. I just think, and also the idea of, and also he could have just used a deodorant to just, put some on his neck or whatever. It would have had the same effect, wouldn't it? It's a splash-on thing.
He could just have sprayed himself with the lavender spray from the toilet.
Or that, exactly. I just think it was a bit of a, I just think it was a bit over the top, really, for what he would have got out of it. So, but I think it was very funny and well-written, and I'm going to forgive you for that.
Novice Nigel.
There's sometimes when you have an underarm and when you lift your arm, if you do any exercise afterwards, it cracks and everything. And, so I don't think, on his neck, say you pulled. So yeah,
I still don't understand anything you say.
I
saw
understood that. I
Yes,
understood
yes, absolutely, young lady. But he did definitely turn a drama into a crisis. But for actually bringing up the words Oxford bags and also Timothy White's, God, I can't vaguely remember those from another century. So absolutely great tale, well told, and got away. And I completely relate to that. The type of thing I would have done with two elder brothers. I'd have borrowed their on a long-term basis their stuff, and then holding it over the thing to then set fire. It's exactly what I've done. So massive sympathy to you, and forgiven hugely, Tim.
I think we've all been there, haven't we? We've all been teenagers and had to go to a chemist to buy stuff that you don't want to have to buy, so you will think of anything you can do to not go into the chemist.
Really?
And so
Which
yeah.
way is this going?
Well, I just didn't want to buy the splash-on lotion, so I know what I'll do. I'll melt.
Buy some condoms.
Yeah, no, I'll melt the other stuff.
You can always
I
rely
would
on Nigel to say exactly the thing that he's not supposed to say.
But I would say also probably the best chemical engineers in the country all started off like this, with an experiment at home that went wrong. And there they are now, leading the country. So I am going to forgive, because that's what he's probably doing now.
Is it David Cameron? Did he do this?
And they, ladies and gentlemen, were this week's confessions. We want to know yours, please. You send us an email, confessions@bbc.co.uk. Maybe one of those stories just stirred a wee memory, and you thought, oh yes, I've got something I can say. Confessions@bbc.co.uk. More next week, and the Weekly Mayo available now and every Thursday. Thank you so much.